Okay, so the first thing we need to do is distress the Very Vanilla layer. We want it to look vintage and old and torn up. So you take your Very Vanilla cardstock piece and your soft suede ink, and you're gonna take 1/4 of a Stampin' sponge. This is how I've constructed mine. Just a little piece of cardstock on the end to recognize it. All right, so you're just gonna dip your sponge into the ink very lightly. The harder you press, the more ink you'll pick up. So it just depends on how much you want on, but you're going to do it all over. Different directions. And then I like to go in with kind of just tear it up a bit. All right, and then on the edges, you'll go in and make it look distressed too. Just take the sponge and scrape it along the edges. Always start out with less. You can always add more, but you can't take some away. So it just depends on how dark you want it. All right, and that looks good. All right, then we're gonna go ahead and close up the ink for now. Don't want it drying out. The next thing you're gonna do with this is take your Stampin' Spritzer and we're gonna wet it just a bit. Don't saturate it. We're just trying to look for dampening it, all right? And then go ahead and crumble it. It's okay to be rough with it. We want it to look distressed. All right, and then I like to go in and tear it up a bit. And then maybe get rid of a piece or two. Okay? So by putting the water on, it helps with the crinkling. It's easier to manipulate. But then after you're done distressing it to your liking, I think I'm gonna get rid of a little bit more down here. All right. Flatten it out and let it thoroughly dry. Don't touch it again. I mean, you can touch it obviously, but I mean, don't work with it on your card until it's completely solid again and dry. All right, so we're just gonna set this aside. And I already have one prepared that is dry. I did earlier. So what we're going to do next is we're going to bring in and do the gray piece with the little nuts. This adds a little extra texture, something else to draw the eye to. We're using the Clear Block A and the basic gray ink pad. And it's up to you where you want to add everything. I just kind of put them in there sporadically, but I like some to hang off. I'll put a little one right there. All right, and we got that. Now what we're going to do, since we don't need this anymore, I like to cut everything out at once. So we're actually going to set this aside for now, and we're going to bring in our little piece of Very Vanilla, and then the soft suede again. And we're going to do our Best Dad banner here. And this is clear block B. Straight down, straight up. Set that to the side. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is stamp our car with the Tuxedo Black Memento Pad. And this assures that when we go and use our blend pens, blend markers, that it won't bleed. It actually stays put, which helps so that you can see the outline. All right, ink it up really well. Straight down, straight up. Pretty cool car. All right, so when you are coloring with the blends, it's going to take a while to perfect this technique. But the more you do it, the better it will become. You know, just with everything, practice makes perfect. So I start out with the marker tip. There's two tips. This one is a little bit finer, and then this one is the marker. Very, very lightly go in, and you could barely touch the paper, and it's going to start to bleed. Don't get so close to the edges that you don't want it to go, because it will bleed up there. So just very lightly we're going to color this in. And it's going to take a while. We're going to take our time. So for those of you who like to color, this is pretty relaxing. I don't mind it as long as I get the time to do it. And we'll go in with the darker, oh, I'm sorry, this is the light Night of Navy one. I should have said that at the beginning. The whole car is going to basically be the light Night of Navy marker, the Stampin' Blend, but we're going to go in afterwards with the darker one and make some shadows. Although I'm not too crazy about using the darker one, sometimes I'm still learning myself on how to get the shading correct. So I actually kind of like to just go in back with the light blend marker and just pile on more than what I have there to make it a little darker. But to each their own, it just depends on. Now when you're covering a wide area, the marker's really nice because it lets down a lot of ink and it'll bleed. But when you start getting into the smaller areas, you want to go for the other side. It doesn't release as much ink and it's a little bit easier to control. Make sure you leave this part alone. And just for those of you out there curious as to how I colored this car, I got my husband's opinion on what it should look like. He is a car guy. All right. We're going to open up the other side, and we're going to go in very lightly. It's just little dots, really, for the little side. I think the biggest thing is to just take your time. Don't rush the coloring job. All right, actually I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna go in and darken up the bottom here. And right here. And back here. Pretty much wherever those shadows are, I'm going in and coloring more. All right. Now we will take the darker Night of Navy. I'm going to take the pen side again. And I'm going to do this part. My husband would call it the ground effects. I call it the part that should be darker. All right, now take the light black, the basic black. Actually, I'm going to use the marker side. And my husband says that this part should be black. So we're going to do the hood fin, as I think it's called. There we go. And then we'll take the light smoky slate and we're going to chrome out our car. Give it some chrome wheels. All right. Make the door handle. The side view mirror, and then the bumper here. And I'm also going to go in and do the outside of the headlights. All right, then I go in with the dark smoky slate and I do the grille to make it a little bit darker than the other chrome pieces of the car. I'm going to add a little darkness down here to the wheels. All right. Maybe a little bit on the side view mirror. All right, hopefully you can see that. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and take all three of our pieces plus the banner that will fit around this, and we're going to go cut it out with the Big Shot. All right, we have our pieces cut out. We have our stitched rectangle, our car, our little Best Dad banner, and then the outer side of the banner I wanted to show you when it's stuck in there like that. Take your pick tool, take your pick tool, and poke through the holes, and it easily comes out. Okay. All right. So how do we get these two pieces to stay together? It's actually quite easy. It's easier than it looks. Go ahead and insert the banner in there, both of them upside down. And then we're going to take our mini dimensionals, and you're going to cover half of each on all four sides. This makes them stay in the correct position, and it will also lift up our banner. Okay. Ta-da! All right, take your regular size Stampin' Dimensionals for the car. I'm gonna go 1, 2, and then 3. All right, now we're ready to construct the card. Come in with your bone folder, increase your sides, and then you'll bring in your dry piece of vintage paper that you made. And when you go to add the snail on, make sure you're careful not to rip the paper further. There we go. It's not going to be exact, but try and get equal matting on all the sides. And it's okay if some of the parts are not glued down, snailed down. It's totally fine. It gives it an extra dimensional look. Go in with your little nutted rectangle piece. Stamped nutted. All right, and this is going to go in the corner. All right, the car, take the backings off the dimensionals. And this is going to be lined up half on, half off. Right there. All right. And finally for the banner, there we go. Didn't want to come off. If you find that the dimensionals are not doing their job holding the pieces together, you can always add some Scotch tape if you want it to be extra sturdy, but I haven't had a problem with it. It holds it pretty well. This is the 3rd card I've made like this. And then you're just going to put it up here in the corner. All right, and there you go. You have a great vintage car card for your dad.